Hello, good morning. Oh, hi, and I.
Hi, Nina. Hi, everybody.
Okay, hello. Hi. Hello from Israel. Well, I would love to be with you over there in New York. This is my third presentation, third year presenting this wonderful conference, and I wish I would be there in the whole conference hall at the Columbia University, and especially meeting Antonella, David, and all the other friends. So let's hope that next year. So we are very proud to present our work on podcast as a means of teaching, learning in higher education. Oh, here's the short outline. We will start by presenting ourselves, and we'll talk about what, why podcasts. And then I will present my experience on research on podcasts as a learning tool. And then I'll move to Yanai. I'll give the floor to Yanai, he will talk about podcasts as teaching tool. And also, we will sum up with lessons learned and future plans. And hopefully that we hope that we find collaboration with you. Let us start. There's a noise, Yanai, it's in your place. Okay, this is us. And Yanai, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. So I'm Yanai, as Gila said, Yanai Zaguri, and I'm teaching in the Holon Technical Institution, and I'm teaching mainly how to develop e-learning, and also responsible for the final project of our BA program. And in addition to that, I'm part of the industry, and I'm developing learning program in the Israeli industry. So that's me.
Okay, thank you, Yanai. And I'm the Dean of the Instructor Technologies faculty in Holon Institute of Technology. Basically, our mission in the faculty is to train professionals as digital learning experts. Our graduated are employed by institutions and organizations as e-learning experts, website content managers, and also as the designer and developers of instructional games and simulation, like you showed before, David. And we are from Holon Institute of Technology, which is a well-established multidisciplinary institution. And we represent the combination of academy and industry, advancing towards the integration of science, engineering, design, and management. Approximately, we have like 5,000 students, bachelor degree and master degree. And in our faculty, we have like 200 students. So before we move to the next slides, we would like to know about you, about your experience, your use of podcasts. So we prepared two questions poll that I assume that someone will pop it up. Right? Am I right? Oh, you can see in the chat. The first question is, do you listen to, how often do you listen to podcasts? Not at all. Half an hour a week. Okay, excellent. We are getting the answers. There are two questions. What is the main use of you? Okay, this is excellent. So we know who is here. Okay, entertainment. Yeah, updates to learn. Most of you listen to podcasts to learn, and you. What is like? Well, we have a number of participants that don't. Not. Do you see the results? Participants see the result, right? So like an hour a week and 2 hours per week. Okay, so most of you know what's podcast, but I suggest that because you have diversity of knowledge, let's start with defining what's podcast. But first, see our wonderful institution. You can see it's empty, the same in all over the world. You know, I just came back from work and no students, silent, nothing. So it's a bit pity. Okay, so what is podcast? This is the general definition. This is a digital audio media that is available online or downloaded for offline use. So it's usually, as we can see, it's usually available online or can be downloaded. Podcasts are very popular. And as most of you agree with me, because it fits to our, how do you say, busy lives. So you can listen to podcasts, whatever, when you go to the gym or go to the grocery, just listen to podcasts. At least this is what I do. There is also a personal element in podcast. It often creates communities. It's a way of finding the individual. You listen to people from your area or your interest, and then you can share your thoughts, and by that you can make some, a community. And as we can see that it's when we go to the learning and teaching, it can enrich the teaching and learning experience. There's our talk that you can read, but you can also listen, or can you view video clip. So first, for enriching, it's very simple, technological. Either produce a podcast or listen to a podcast. Flexibility in time, you can learn and listen whenever you are. And actually, it's break through the boundaries of the classroom as the space. And now with the COVID-19, we were forced to do this, but we use podcasts even before. But with this COVID-19, now we use it as a teaching and learning means. And I will start with learning. What do we do in learning? Sorry, to move this. Okay. In one of the courses, in the MA courses, students were asked to share their professional knowledge, and they had to plan a topic like what we say. I'm sorry, it's in Hebrew, so I'll tell you it's about like learning management systems or simulation or mobile learning, and infographics, also podcast about infographics, which is kind of strange. So they had to produce, it was a final assignment in the course. It was really strange, because they are used to write and present or make a PowerPoint presentation. They had to record the same in a studio, and it became one of the fascinating assignment to be done, because this year also they are doing it, but this year that we are not going to a studio because we cannot come to the campus, so they do it on the mobile phone. So we hear from them that this was one of their best assignment, and you have to understand it's online, it's open. So when they go to interview for work, they can share it, and they have. And I know for one student, she got a job because they heard her on the podcast. So this is kind of thing we're offering to use the podcast as a mean of assignment or work of a student to share knowledge all over the country and even in the world. But if you understand Hebrew, you can listen to it. So this is my part, and I'll move to Yanai. Okay, please, Yanai.
Share. We will take an example that, again, we use in our MA in one of the courses that I'm giving. And in this course, I used the podcast that I pre-recorded in order to create a flipped classroom. The students listened to the podcast before the lesson. We had 10 episodes. Each episode presented a use case and a specific topic. And once they finished listening, they would get, and in the classroom, we would have a simulation. We will start a discussion. We will start the lesson immediately, handling the content, the issues that a training manager can find, or a training director or L&D director can find a specific situation from the field. And it was very interesting to see how they are trying to implement the knowledge that they already acquired during the podcast and listening to those episodes that we pre-recorded. And especially this year, especially during the COVID-19 challenge, the fact that they listened to the podcast help them be reconnected to the content even when we are not on the lessons. And even before this COVID-19 challenges, we experience our learners, our students telling us that they are feeling that the boundaries of the classroom has been breached. It has been breached because we can take the lessons and the voice of the lecture, my voice, into their car when they are washing dishes, when they are taking the dog to a walk. We have been able to be with them even when they are not at campus. And another very interesting thing that we have found using this method is the fact that the students told us that they felt very close, very interpersonal relationship with the content. And that was very, very important, as I said, especially during COVID-19, when I can share with you my experience. I delivered that course without meeting the students face-to-face even once. I needed to deliver all of that course remotely. And because they pre-listened to the podcast, they already got familiar with my voice, with my story, with my elements. They already started to know who is Yanai and what is my background and what are my opinions and what is my narrative. And that really helped us during this period. And we understand that we need to make sure that we are increasing the interaction. So we got to create kind of an interpersonal interaction with our students, increase the engagement, but we want to take it one step further. And taking it one step further is the project that we are currently managing as part of our BA program. Our students are creating a full project, a real-life project that needs to work in the industry. This project, and sorry for the Hebrew, you can see it on the screen. And this project is a podcast, an interactive podcast. It means that, as we saw in the examples just before our sessions, this podcast will allow the user, the listener, to be prompted with a question or with a scenario, and by selecting a specific branch, the podcast will change the outcome, will change the following steps of the podcast. You can see on the right side of the screen, you can see the end user experience. And again, sorry for the Hebrew. We are thinking of translating it to English. So if you have any thought about the interactive podcast, please contact us. So on the right side of the screen, you can see the end user experience. You can see that in the middle of the podcast, a question has been prompted to the user. Those little lines, yellow lines, are representing the point in time when a question will be prompted. And on the left side of the screen, you can see the editor environment. The editor environment, which allows you to upload a voice, MP3 or MP4 file, and start providing it interactions that will interact with the user, multiple choice, single choice, even an open question, even a rank question, and just branching. So that's what we are planning to do, and I'm very excited to start handling this system. And I'm getting the first versions of the system from the students that are developing it, and it's really exciting to think about the potential that we can reach engagement and interaction with our students using this kind of tool. That's from us. Gila, do you want to take it from here?
So we are very much excited with this work, and we ask you if you have any questions, comments, or would you like to collaborate in sharing in this developing this interactive podcast. We are very welcome any collaboration. Thank you. I'm looking at.
Thank you so much. We're going to have we do have time for questions, so we're going to wait for the questions to come in through the chat. So you know, thanks again for the presentation and for the explanation. So you know, so you do podcasts as well. You look, we all want to ask this question, so I will ask while I have a moment. You are giving the appearance of someone who does podcasts quite a bit. So tell us a little bit more about your experience. You look completely set up. It looks like you have a radio station.
Yes. So actually, we find podcast also in the L&D industry as a very effective mean of transferring knowledge, of broadcasting the content, and we are in an e-learning situation. We are used to think of very enriched graphic environments, and sometimes those very enriched graphic environments are really helpful, but sometimes the content is enough. Yes, it demands us to really think about the content. It demands to create a very strict not only interaction, a very strict audio file, either by using storytelling or by using a very delicate and well thought content, because we don't have the bells and whistles of graphics elements and drag and drop and a multiple choice question rising up on the screen. So we have only the voice, and voice needs really to matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the stories, I know, yes, as you mentioned, we've seen a lot with stories earlier in this conference, and that's a critical thing. What are some other things that come up if someone's putting together a podcast and they wanted to really grab people? So along with stories, what else might you recommend?
The best tip will be to, although it's challenging, I think the best tip will be to keep it personal. Creating a podcast from the point of view of someone that taking you into his living room, even if it's a talk, a dialogue, two friends that are speaking eye to eye, opening the discussion, trying to release the very didactic elements that we have in corporate learning and in the academic, trying to be very open and loose, and that's what's getting the content to flow, and that's what the users are wanting to hear. Using humor, of course, if you can, if you have it, if you have that ability, that's great. And as personal as it gets, that's what to be driven. That's the most important tip, I think.
Okay. Thanks. And there's a question from the chat from Christina. Just says, sorry if she missed this in the talk, but do students need special communication skills? Do you train them on sort of, this is a communications experience as much as anything else doing a podcast? So are there things that you do, the students get trained on how to, how to speak in public or on their voice or anything like that? Is there some part of that in putting together a podcast?
Yes, we do, because, we don't want them to be recorded like reading and, very monotonous, like very boring. So we tell them you need to let the listener to present using just their audio and usually each podcast starts with a story, personal story, to engage the listeners, and from there they go. But this is really an academic stuff. It's not like, entertainment. If you're interested in learning about LMS or virtual words, so the topics are very professional, and they bring their experience on top of content that they read, or maybe their project from previous course. Also, we add the text, of course, the script, but with URLs for additional knowledge or podcasts. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, let me ask something sort of related. When, some of these are academic, so there's a lot of information potentially, right? And the academic way is to recite a lot of information. So how do you manage, how do you help advise people how to handle that, both in terms of the content that gets in and the rhythm of the entire experience, right? Because people need to process things cognitively as they're listening and not be overwhelmed. If you're sitting in your car listening to a podcast and someone gives you 10 key points, I don't think, what are you going to remember 2 of those if they go by quickly? So what tips do you give your students to help them manage this sort of the tendency to want to speak about a lot of information and how to balance the time so that people can process it appropriately in the environment that they'll be in when they hear it?
Okay, I forgot to say that we limit the time no more than 8 to 9 minutes. So this is an additional challenge. You have to bring the clear and cut message you want to say. So this is what we do. Like, here's the 3 keys that I want to tell you. And so they're very short, and it's really hard for them because they're used to write. And they finished each podcast with kind of something to think about. Like, okay, what do you think? What do you figure out? What will be with the virtual words? So this is something, it takes them a lot of time, much more than regular assignment. So we train them, and we train them to use the voice up, down, and so forth. But they don't need special equipment. They can use their mobile. You're right, we have a radio station, which we didn't use this year, but it's very simple. But hearing yourself talking about something really changed the mode of students. I'm sure
it does. I'm sure it's quite they don't sound the way that they think they're sounding. Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. Yeah,
that's a great question. Sarah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, and I want to say, yes, we are, it is a challenge because when we are thinking about how people are consuming information, we are dividing it to leading forward as we are working on a computer, or leading backward as I'm seeing Netflix at night. And podcasts are being related more to leading backward, to the state of mind that I'm not really learning. But there are some tricks that we can use in order to make the learner lean forward, at least in the state of mind, using sounds, using storytelling, using a very exact opening and closing, using a repeated structure of each episode. Those best practices coming from the industry allow us to create the maximum learning unit from a podcast.
Got it. We have another question from Sarah, which is, can you talk more about how podcasts can build community and how to do that more effectively? So,
Yanai, do you want to?
There are 2 ways. First of all, when the students are required to record a podcast, to create their own episode, they are exchanging their own opinions about the episode that their peers are recording. So I'm recording an episode and I'm sending it to all of my peers, and something in the environment of listening to your assignment and having my own opinion on your assignment, and the challenge that I'm facing, which is very close to the challenge that just last week, creates kind of a discussion, a very professional peer discussion. But even for the lesson, the students that only listen, the student that only needs to follow a podcast from, for example, in my course, the fact that all of them heard the same story, and we are starting the discussion on the point that the story got to be complicated. For example, in one of the episodes, I'm telling them about a very, very difficult issue that I had with one of my peers in one of my L&D jobs back in the days, and I'm getting them into the conflict, and I'm telling them what a terrible mistake I did by not collaborating with that person. And then we are starting the discussion on what have you have been doing, what would you have done in this situation? And the fact that all of them are aligned and all of them are knowing the story and in the context, that allows us to speak as a community, as peers, not as a lecturer that come and provide the knowledge for them, as a community that create the knowledge and create together the answer to what have you have done in this specific situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it brings them. They're sharing a common experience, and then that gives you something kind of in the, in the way that my fifth grade class, when we did the state project, we saw that one yesterday, is the same kind of thing. You're working on something similar, and you collaborate, and you form a community because you're engaged in this common experience. Another question from Palmer Jones, which is, what do you see as the most effective way to use podcasts to inspire behavior change? So there's a challenge. So give you 30 seconds to think about that, and you're on the spot. So these are great answers so far, but
I've never
you got the big
it.
microphone. You got to be ready to answer the questions. This is how it goes.
Well, I really don't know, because we use it for sharing professional knowledge. This is not our main target. It's just sharing knowledge and not changing. So honestly, I don't know. So maybe next year you will tell us. Because I don't know. Thank you, Sarah, also.
I would add that
I would imagine there are different. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Yanai.
Yes, I would add that I think that the podcast is one of the means. Is one of the means that help us. For example, in the L&D domain, it's one of the means that help us to provide knowledge. And by providing that knowledge and getting into sometimes the most intimate places that a person can take our voice with him. Sometimes to walk the dog, or when I'm doing the dishes, or whenever, when you are there and providing the same message again and again and again, you have more ability to be there providing the knowledge. For my opinion, it won't be enough to create a behavioral change. We need more blended solution in order to create the behavioral change.
Right. So it's one element generally in your view, it's one element of a strategy, and it's an important element. It's a useful element, but it's not necessarily in and of itself going to be sufficient in most cases. I think, right. I think it was a murder case that reopened because of a podcast, right? I think that was the big story in the US. So you can, you can change behavior in some sense, but that's maybe more, societal change than it is any individual person. That might be asking too much. So you never know. Well, great. Well, I think we are just about out of time. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. Both of you, Gila and I. Gila, I know we have a pre-recorded interview, so you'll be here with us in video tomorrow, and hopefully here with us on the chat throughout the rest of the conference.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks once again.